Hello, welcome to today's session, How to Build a Low-Code Power App in 30 Minutes, as part of the webinar series titled Discover the Power of Low-Code Apps. Thank you all for joining. I have just a few housekeeping items to go over before we get started. All lines have been muted to reduce background noise. If you experience any technical difficulties, please let us know by using the chat panel below. We will be taking questions through the presentation and will answer them during the last 10 to 15 minutes of today's session. After today's event, you will be receiving an email with the slides from today's presentation and the recording. At LBMC Technology Solutions, our aim is to be your team for everything tech. If you think of a technology challenge or need, please drop it in the chat, Q&A, or send us an email at info@lbmctech.com. Now, please help me welcome our presenter for today's webinar, Jason Barnes and Tyler Boswell. Jason joined LBMC Technology Solutions over 8 years ago and has more than 22 years of experience in technology, specializing in CRM, Microsoft Power Platform, as well as solution consulting and architecture. Tyler has been with LBMC Technology Solutions for 3 years, but was at Interdyne Artis for 5 years prior to the merger. He has extensive experience in solutions architecting and development for complex business requirements and processes using the Power Platform stack, as well as many additional relevant areas of work experience. Now, Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Elisa. I appreciate it. Again, just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. For those of you who are not as familiar with LBMC Technology Solutions, we've actually been doing it for a while. We've actually been helping clients with their IT and technology needs for, it's going on about 27 years now. So we've been doing it for a while. We provide a wide range of services and support as a technology services provider and partner, or network administration type needs. We also implement and support several leading ERP and accounting systems. And of course, my team, we're here to help you with any sort of CRM support, development, implementation, or training needs you could possibly have. And of course, we've extended our services to, of course, cover Power Platform, which is part of what we're here to talk about today. So the LBMC Technology Solutions company is actually part of 9 different LBMC sister companies. It actually all started with our tax and audit firm many years ago, decades ago at this point, and just grew from there. The saying that we always like to pass on to clients is that at LBMC, we can help a business with just about anything. We just don't offer cleaning services for your offices. We do just about everything else. We've become a bit more of I would say, a regional operation in recent years. We do have multiple offices throughout the Southeast, including Tennessee and in North Carolina, as you can see here. But in total, if you were to add up all of our consultants and employees, we have around 125 of them throughout the country. So lots of reach throughout the country, not just in the Southeast. With all that, let's get started with our session today. So today's session is a little different than the last few that we have done. We have the opportunity today to see a live build of a Power App. So we thought this would be fun, be a chance for us to really showcase our capabilities and some of our services that we can offer around Power Apps. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. But before we dive into that, a few things. We want to, of course, make sure everybody is on the same page. So we're going to do a quick recap, just a few minutes on recapping Power Platform and Power Apps specifically, so that everybody really knows what they're about to see. And then we're going to explain like this fictional business case for a company called CONTOSO. So we'll explain what's the situation around this company, what are their sort of, what's the purpose for the new app that they need, what are the circumstances around that, and then talk about, of course, the requirements they have for the app. And then we all get to watch a complete Power App being built in 30 minutes or less. I know I sound like dominoes, but we are going to see a Power App build today with Tyler, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. Get a chance for everybody to see it and, of course, ask questions. So we'll do a quick, what I would call like a debrief after his session. And then, of course, we'll save time for some live Q&A. As we get started, so some of you might remember in our first two events, we talked about this low-code, no-code revolution that's happening right now in the technology industry. And like I said, in our third event today, we wanted to focus on helping everyone become a bit more familiar with the sort of those capabilities with Power Apps. With the Power Platform, the important thing to understand here, or in my opinion, what is so interesting about Power Platform is that it's actually been around in some way for many years, actually. Microsoft was a very early participant in this low-code platform market or industry for more than, I would say, around 5 years plus. Some of the early tools that we see in Power Platform were actually already part of existing applications like Dynamics 365. So what we're actually seeing is those tools and some of those low-code components that we worked with have now evolved into this whole platform. But to put simply, Power Platform, I really appreciate this definition. It's a low-code, high-productivity platform, and it gives businesses and its teams the ability to not only create apps, right? That's great that you have a low-code technology to build just a custom app that the business needs, but also be able to link that app to multiple data sources and other applications that the company might be using. So that's powerful, being able to link it to these other things. And then, of course, on top of that, you add Power Automate, which is something we talked about in our last webinar, to allow you to actually add some automation of the processes that go into using that application. Of course, part of Power Platform is Power Pages, which lets us build and support websites, or, for example, customer service portals or order portals, for example. So there's things that we can do with Power Pages to build an actual website. Many of you are probably familiar with chat bots and chat agents. These are virtual and in some cases unattended, but sometimes attended chat features that we can enable to allow you to, through that chat experience. And then, of course, we have the ability to leverage AI using AI Builder. And then, of course, Power BI is something that everybody is these days seems to be well familiar with, which is a business intelligence and the reporting platform. Let's talk about some of what I consider to be the two crucial components that make up the Microsoft Power Platform. And the first is the Dataverse. So Dataverse is essentially the database. It's the back end. Many of the Microsoft 365 apps and tools, such as Dynamics 365, Office, and of course the Power Platform, a lot of those are built right on top of Dataverse to store and secure the data that they use. This enables businesses to build these custom apps and use this automation with these automated workflows with a direct connection to that core data, right? That's being managed in Dataverse. And this is being done without the need for any real integration at all. These are just two connectors that are enabled so that the application is accessible across the Dataverse. Very neat stuff. And this concept, another term, just to make sure everybody remembers, the concept of that shared database, you might think of it as like a common foundation, right? Like, say, you might have a tall building that shares the same foundation, but it could have many tenants in it, right? That common, or I should say shared database or foundation layer is known in our industry as the common data model. And as I've said before, it is the future. It is how modern business applications will be delivered and supported well into the future. So it's something that we should all keep a close eye on, make sure we're taking advantage of that. So another component is the data connector. So data connectors are essentially pre-built templates almost, right? You know, what we call in our industry an API wrapper. I used that term last time. And essentially they allow the source service to talk to Power Apps and Power Automate, right? So it's a way to connect, as I was saying earlier, connect these Power Apps, for example, that we would create to other systems and services by use of these connectors. There's currently around 1,000 or over 1,000 of these available for Power Platform. Now they do consist of a standard free flavor and a premium flavor. There is usually some sort of charge for the premium connectors, although they're not terribly expensive. So that's just something to remember as well. Additionally, you do have the ability to create custom connectors for applications that are like unique to your needs. So we can certainly do that as well. For those of you that have on-premise applications and databases, maybe you have a SQL database that you use, we can connect that to Power Platform. There's the ability to deploy what we call a data gateway that will support a connection to that local data source or database. All right. So let's talk specifically about Power Apps, just to recap of Power Apps. So Power Apps, in my opinion, is probably the most vital piece of Power Platform. That's probably argumentative, but I think it's something that provides the most instant value to a business. With Power Apps, we talked about that it's this ability to create a sort of rapid, fast-paced development tool to allow businesses to build these custom apps. And in many cases, a matter of hours or days, weeks, let's say. But of course, today, we're going to see one done in 30 minutes, right? So it does this by allowing that interface. And the best thing about today is that everybody's going to get to see this interface, this Power App interface, and get a chance for Tyler to show it to you. I think you're going to be really excited to see. And one thing I want to make sure that everybody is aware is that with Power Apps, you're really talking about two different types of Power Apps. You have a Canvas app, which is typically used for a make from scratch scenario, where businesses require more custom business logic. It's something that there's really no prior foundation to start with. You want to start with a clean slate, right? And then there's what we call a model-driven app, and that's used in situations where there's more straightforward database that's needed to collect data, more straightforward. So you're actually we have both today. We're actually going to show you the creation of a Canvas app. In this case, the Canvas app is going to speak to the model-driven app. We're going to get a chance to explain all that to you here shortly. All right, and just a recap of the benefits around Power Apps, again, just to make sure everybody understands, is that number one, they're obviously highly configurable, customizable, and then of course scalable. You can have a seemingly unlimited number of users in it. They're fast and cost effective. That is probably the best benefit out of it all, is that you can deploy them quickly and it's cost effective. The subscription for Power Apps is really inexpensive. We can leverage AI capabilities, such as like form processing. We can embed that in the app, for example. And then, of course, it's integrated with all the other Microsoft 365 applications and services. And then, of course, all the non-Microsoft applications and services using one of those 1,000+ available data connectors. All right. So let's talk about Contoso. So this is our fictional customer for today. And so let's talk about them for a minute. So Contoso, just set the stage a little bit for Tyler. Contoso provides, we're going to pretend that they provide professional services to clients in the healthcare industry. And they've recently seen a drop in revenue this year. And what they feel is a result of just less recurring business from existing clients and fewer net new clients. They're just not adding as many logos this past year. So they also have noticed that several competitors have introduced, new service programs that are really growing in popularity and taking a lot of Contoso's existing market share over. And leadership, they're smart. They realize the solution will likely come from within their own company. They want to leverage their experience, right? So Contoso employs a team of consultants with tons of industry experience. It's just they got to figure out a way to tap into that experience and have the company benefit from that. In general, Contoso is really struggling to innovate, and they're really looking to their employees to come up with some new ideas. They have launched with their HR team. They've recently launched a new company initiative that's designed to encourage the Contoso employees to submit their ideas. Problem is they don't really have a system to capture those ideas or suggestions just yet, but they know that they've got to do something quick and it needs to be inexpensive. They can't afford to deploy in a bad year. You can't afford to deploy a whole new HR system that would include some of this capability. So their existing environment, of course, employees, they're consultants, so they work in the office or they'll work remotely. As I said before, Contoso actually has already started using Power Platform. They use Microsoft Teams. They use Office 365. but they're, in terms of their IT resources, they don't have a software developer on staff yet. And not that they necessarily need one anyway, but they do not have a developer on staff. But HR will use their existing HR system, or they do want to use their existing HR system to collect those employee submissions. All right. So let's talk about the requirements for the app real quick, and then we'll get into it here. So the requirements for the app, so not putting too much pressure on Tyler, is obviously it's got to be developed in Power Platform, again, which they already have in use. It's got to be accessible via a mobile device or through their browser. Once an employee submits their idea, they need to be able to view their submission history, okay? So that's an important piece to it, and be able to go back and look at which ideas they've submitted already, in case they have a plethora of ideas, they're able to keep submitting new ones. And then, of course, the app itself should collect the employee, collect the submission date, like the date they actually submitted it. And then, of course, an explanation of how they think the idea will help CONTOSO innovate, right? And then, of course, the details of the employee submission should be captured in that existing HR system, which is actually built in Power Apps. So they use a model-driven app to track their HR data, the HR profiles. All right. So I think now we're about ready to turn the presentation over to Tyler. So again, Tyler he's a senior consultant and solution architect on my team. He's been working with Power Platform for several years now. I'm sure it's at least 3 or 4 years at this point. And he's created a wide variety of Power Apps during that time. He's developed some really impressive skills with Power Platform. He's MacGyver with Power Platform, for those who MacGyver is. And we decided to challenge him a bit. So I went to our team and I said, all right, we're going to have to challenge you guys. 30 minutes, Tyler. You got 30 minutes. I want you to build us a pretty cool Power App and show everybody what this thing can do. So as promised, Tyler is going to attempt to build a Power App that will allow CONTOSO to collect that employee idea submissions to meet those requirements that we just discussed. And he's going to do it in less than 30 minutes. Without further ado, Tyler, you may share your screen as soon as you are ready, sir.
Thanks, Jason. All right, can everybody hear me? Or Jason, can you hear me?
We can see your screen and we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'll start this timer to see how close we get. Okay, so I've already opened up a new Power App here, Canvas app more specifically, and now we'll just go through the steps of building out the app that Jason described. So the first thing that we're going to do is add the data that we need for the app. So these would be the connectors that Jason was referring to. All of this is already built in DATAVERSE. So there's already an existing table that has been created to store all of this data. So I will go ahead and add the idea submission table. And I will also add the users table so that we can tie the person who is submitting the idea in the app to a user in DATAVERSE. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is make sure that our users can submit an idea. So I'm going to use this screen for that. So we'll just call this the submission screen. And let's go ahead and do another screen at the start that we'll just call our home screen. For the submission screen, for actually submitting an idea, we're going to add a edit form component. And we'll just make it that big. Okay, so an edit form allows us to connect to a DATAVERSE table or a table from any source. In this case, we'll be using DATAVERSE to create records for that table, or to basically set you up with a outline for creating records for that table. So the data source here is going to be idea submissions, since that is the table. And the default mode is going to be new because we are not going to be editing an existing idea submission. We're going to be creating new ones. And then I'm going to choose the fields that we're going to bring in. So we need the how will this help field, the description field, and the title. So we'll add those here. And let's go ahead and put them in the order that we want. So we want the title first, then the description, then how will this help? And we'll just go ahead and reduce this to being one column. So now we have our form for submitting an idea. And now we're going to add a button that will actually let them do a submission. Button a little bit bigger. Just put it right there. And say submit. Okay. One of the first things we want to do is make it so that these things are being filled in before the button is available. So I'm going to go to the display mode of the button. This is what's defining whether the button can be pressed or not, essentially. And we're just going to do a quick little if statement to decide whether or not the button can be pressed. In this case, we are going to say, as long as all of these contain data, then it can be pressed. We will say, as long as all of these are not blank, so we'll say data card value 1, which is how will this help? And then data card value 2 will be the other one, and we'll just go through those really quick. Okay. So as long as all of those are not blank, then the display mode will be edit, which means it can be pressed. Otherwise, it will be disabled, so it can't, right? And so you can see here now, I can't do anything with this button. It's grayed out because I haven't put anything in here. But just to play the app and test it, let's say test. Now the button shows up. So that works as expected. So now we just need to make it so that when we press this button, it will actually put our idea data into the system. So to start, we want to make sure that we are figuring out who the user is that's using the app. So I'm going to go to the app object here, and in the onStart property, I'm going to basically figure out who the user is. So I'm going to use the set function to set a variable that is called useRec. And in order to do that, I'm going to do a lookup on the user table that I added earlier. And we are going to say that you're finding the user where their primary email is equal to the user that is currently accessing this app and their email. Okay. So as long as the person who's using the app exists with their email in DATAVERSE, i.e. CRM or the existing HR app, then it will tie them here. So now when I press the submit button, I can tell it what I want it to do. So we'll say on select, we're going to do a patch. The patch is how you actually write rows into a table. And the source of that is going to be the idea submissions table. And since we're creating a new record, we're going to use the defaults function, which is its way of knowing that you're creating a new record of this type. And then we're going to identify the actual values. We can look here to see what columns we have. So we know what we need: a title, and we need a description. And we want to do how will this help? And then we also want to tie the owner to the person who submitted it. So starting with the owner, And we will use the user rec variable that I identified earlier. And then for the title, we will use the idea title that we have here. So that's data card value 3. More specifically, the text of data card value 3. And then we can do the description, which will be data card value 2. And then we will do the how will this help? Data card value 1. All right. So these should be all the things we need to actually create a idea submission. So let's go ahead and test that right now. So I'll go ahead and press the button here. I knew I forgot something. So we will go ahead and start the app. Actually, I'll just do this. You can do a run on start from the editor, and that will actually make it so that it will run anything that is within the onStart property without you actually having to run the app. But now, I press the submit button. I didn't get an error, so that's good. And the Zoom tray is in my way. So give me a moment. There we go. So now I see the record that I created in here. So that worked. So now we just need to make this look a little bit more like an app. So let's start with the home screen here. So we know that we need a button that says that they're going to either submit a new idea or a button that says that they want to view their ideas that they've already submitted. So let's go ahead and start with a button over here. And I do not have an eye for design, so forgive me for the fact that this app is not going to look very pretty. So this button will be called Submit Idea. And when we press it, it will just take us to our submission screen. So we'll use the navigate function and submission screen. Now, when we press this button, it takes us here. So we have that part. We also want to make sure that after we patch our idea submission in, we clear out this form. So after we're done here, we can do a reset form function. And our form 1 is what we'll reset. Let's also add another screen to the app, and we'll just call it the thank you screen. And we'll just have this put some big text that says thank you. We'll have that in the center. And there we go. And then we'll add another button to this screen that lets you return home. So we'll just put it down here, make it a little bigger, have it say return home. And when we press it, we will navigate to the home screen. And just to make sure that works, when we press it, it takes us to the home screen. Great. Now we want to make sure that this button takes us to the thank you screen. So after it resets the form, we'll have it navigate to the thank you screen and reset. So let's just get rid of the one that I had already created so that we don't get confused. So now we can walk through this whole app here. I can say, let me just make sure that this has nothing in it before we start. Say I want to submit an idea. Click submit. It says thank you for your submission. And I return home. And if I click submit an idea again, it's blank again this time. So now we don't have any duplicates. And if I look, I see the idea that I just submitted. So far, working the way that we want it to. So the last piece that we need here, let me check the time, 15 minutes, looking good. I'll go ahead and add one more screen, and this will be the screen for reviewing existing submissions. So we'll just call, let's just rename this one to the thank you screen. And we'll call this one, call this new submission screen. And we'll call this one the My Submissions screen. So this is where the user will be able to go to see their existing submissions. So to keep this easy, we're just going to go with a table here. So I'm going to do layout and a data table. And we'll just make it about that big. And I'll add a text label at the top that just says my submissions. Make it bigger and put it in the middle. There we go. All right. And looking here, I already have an idea that I've submitted, so we know that our app should see our existing submissions. The data source that we're using here can be a filtered list from a source. As you recall, we already have identified who our user is here. So we can use that in this table to filter the submissions that we see. So we can say we're going to filter idea submissions where the owner is our user rec variable. And now we can see this. So we can update the fields being used here to show the data that we have. But I think that this works for the most part. So we'll just leave it like this for now. We won't worry about the submitted by actually, because we know that it's only us. So I'm actually going to just remove this one. And I don't really like the way that this one is being formatted. So I'm going to go ahead and just change this format here. So we'll do datetime format dot short date. There we go. And now we just need a button to get here. So we'll add it to the home screen. We'll do a button. We'll at least make it try to line up with this button a little bit. There we go. And we'll have this button say view submissions. And when we press it, we will just navigate to the My Submissions screen. Test that. We press it, we end up here. And now we're going to just get a button that will take us back home over here. So I'll just do a icon. So we'll look for a home icon. And I'll just put it up here in this corner. And on select, we will navigate. All right. So now let's test the app out fully. We'll start from the home screen. I can view an existing submission. I can submit a new idea. And I can go ahead and now I can press submit. It says, thank you for your submission. I can return home and I can view my submissions. And there it is. That covers us having an app that will allow users to submit a new idea and view their existing ideas. And they all end up in this existing DATAVERSE table for HR to work with. And we did that in 22 minutes. We actually came in under. And I think that's about it for my quick walkthrough. Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. So we're going to add the Contoso logo here. And we can just put that right here.
All right.
And now it's branded. So Jason, I
Cherry
will
on top.
hand it back to you.
All right. Thanks, Tyler. Let's go ahead and if you want to stop sharing your screen, thank you, sir. So I think everybody should be able to see my screen again. All right. So let's just take a minute to talk about what we just saw. So Contoso now has a fully functional, albeit not so pretty, but a fully functional employee idea and submission app. So they're able to collect these ideas from their employees. And just a reminder, Tyler created this as a Canvas app. And the idea would be that the Contoso did so in their existing Microsoft 365 environment. I think he created 4 to 5 screens there, along with some record forms, some buttons for navigation. And then he took that app that he just created and connected it to the existing Contoso HR system. And he did it in less than 30 minutes. I think he said, was it 22 minutes that we just saw a second ago? So there you go, challenge achieved. So thank you for doing this build challenge, Tyler. Great job, sir. And for those of you who are curious too about the cost for what Tyler just showed you, it looks like Microsoft has some recent changes in the way that they're pricing Power Apps. And essentially, Power Apps will be part of the standard offering with Dynamics 365 Enterprise. So if you have Dynamics 365, quote unquote CRM, the sales or customer service flavor, or perhaps the marketing app, you would have access to build a Power App. A lot of in addition to that, the higher level Microsoft 365 licensing subscriptions do also now come with Power Apps. But there is an added Power Apps premium subscription that they just announced. It's about $20 a month. And it's basically unlimited everything, premium everything. $20 a month. That's doable for most budgets. So very powerful tool, very impressive in my opinion. Let's sure that we've got a few that we want to cover. Elisa, could you help with our Q&A section here?
We had one question come in about offering training in Dynamics 365, and Tyler was kind enough to answer yes, we do offer training in D365, but if you'd like to expound on that, here's your opportunity.
As far as training services, if anyone out there needs help with Dynamics 365, Power Platform, really anything in the Microsoft 365 stack, I would say 99% of that we can help training with. I know we've done a lot of recent trainings and a lot of different or additional support sessions, you might say, for Power Platform to help some clients start to adopt these new tools like Power Apps. And of course, Power Automate is been also a very big topic for training and support right now, is helping clients get more familiar with those tools. Yeah, if you need help with training, by all means, just reach out. We have any other questions, Elisa?
Thank you, Jason. We do have a couple more. One question is, how difficult is it to integrate a Power App to data in a non-Microsoft application? Excuse me.
Yeah, I think the ability, it's actually very easy. Number one, I mentioned earlier about the connectors. So there's 1,000 plus growing list of connectors for both Microsoft and non-Microsoft applications and services that are out there. So you can start by looking at that list. There may already be a connector for the Power App that you're looking to build to the service that you already have. There is also, as I mentioned before, the ability to create custom connectors. So if it's not already built and available as a connector already, you can build your own connection. In fact, I think Tyler does a lot of that, where he will go in and just create a new connector unique to that client's needs. To answer that question, there's connectors, and then you can create a custom one. And there's basically very few things that we would not be able to connect to, such as older legacy databases and things. But if it has a more modern database like SQL database or MySQL, some others as far as like local data sources, and then, like I said, a really unlimited number of online services and applications. That was a good question. All right. And I think with that, I believe Elisa's going to wrap things up for us.
Thank you, Jason. We hope this webinar on building a low-code Power App has been informative and valuable to everyone who joined us today. Keep an eye out for 2 more webinars this fall. November 9th, we'll be hosting Dynamics 365 Customer Insights Journeys, as well as a date to be developed this fall for low-code business automation tools. Again, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars. If you have any further questions or need guidance on how to get started, our team is always available to support and assist you.